Welcome, everybody. It's episode 307 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, aka the Pod God, joined today by the Ardlow Hanlon of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about, do you know what? It wasn't the greatest week in the world of MMA, to be honest, but it might be a good week coming up next week. So we have a bit of news to talk about coming up there, and we will go over some of the fights from the week. And actually, I have a bit of a thing to start us off with. And I think we're entering kind of a new era of MMA, but we will get to that in a second. But the first thing I want to say is that we are presented today by Manscaped, and our friends at Manscaped say, "Hey, you got bush?" You definitely do if you haven't tried the new best products from our sponsors, Manscaped. After using these life-changing products, you're going to want to join the Ballsack Beauty Contest. I'm looking out for you too, because I have an exclusive 20% off using the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. And I know myself and Graeme have been using Manscaped for a long time. Where's my Manscaped? I have it here. The last time they told us we sounded like Formula 1 cars the last time, Graeme, with our Manscaped products going in the background. So we've been using them religiously now for about 6 months. We're as bald as fucking Dana White's head using our Manscaped downstairs. And Manscaped is dedicated to helping you with your full body grooming game with our Perfect Package 3.0 kit, which has the Essential Lawnmower 3.0, which you just heard. It's waterproof, cordless, ball trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formations to round out your grooming routine with that as well. The 3.0 is the best trimmer to help your hedges. This trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade, reducing grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. When you trim the hedges, the tree stands taller. The Perfect Package, inside the Perfect Package, you'll find the Manscaped Crop Preserver, which is absolutely brilliant. I use all the time, and it's a ball deodorant, making your balls smelling majestic before your Tinder date. You'll also find a Crop Reviver ball toner, a spray-on testes toner that's designed to make your balls smell irresistible. Be sure to add the refined cologne to your package as well. With the Perfect Package or performance package purchase, you get 2 free gifts: the Shed travel bag, $39 in value, which is absolutely fantastic if we could only go somewhere to use it, and but we will be hopefully now here soon. And the patented high performance reducing chafing Manscaped boxers, which I know a lot of lads over on Patreon absolutely love. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for your trimming experience. So that's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Let me say that again. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. It's 2020 and you still got bush. Change that with Manscaped. Now, Graeme, how are you? Any crack?
2021, yeah. 2021.
Yeah.
Living in the past, like
is it
Man United fans.
Oh god, I like Liverpool. Liverpool fans love 2020. It's the best year of your lives. You're stuck indoors, you know. Isn't it great? There's going to be fans back to see.
We're just making the Champions League interesting for everybody. Making the Champions League interesting for everybody. You know, one of these famous comebacks en route to another glorious victory. Can we have a little bit of a Trent Alexander Arnold discussion at the end of the podcast? Because we can't do it now because everyone will tune out. But I really want to have that discussion. We'll wait at the end of the podcast. So, come here. Speaking about like that sort of thing, do you know the new? We talk about Trent Alexander Arnold, right? He's kind of a new era of footballer. You know, maybe not the best in all areas, but fantastic in some areas. I feel like MMA is kind of going that way a bit, and I feel like we're in a new era now. Because I put up a thing the other day, and we talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about all the cards in a second, but this is one kind of narrative I think has built up for me over the last week, just because I've put out of a tweet I put out, and after Demetrius Johnson lost, I kind of thought to myself, right, Demetrius lost. I thought he was still right up there for pound best in the world. Lost to a very good guy, Adriano Moraes, and if anyone was listening to the Chasing Pack with myself and Ian, we very much told you about that fight and about how it's a tough one for Demetrius, and I know Capose and a lot of other people did as well. But however, Demetrius lost. John Jones has been on the shelf. We haven't seen him in a long time. Obviously, Conor McGregor has lost a few fights now. Khabib Nurmagomedov is retired. Tony Ferguson, who was up there in the pound for pound list, has lost a couple of fights. So that era, I think, of the guys who we were talking about who are the best fighters in the world in the UFC,
like even if you look at, say, in Bellator, you had a Michael Chandler and an Eddie Alvarez. Okay, Michael Chandler's fighting for the belt now, but I don't think anyone would be talking about him near the pound for pound list. And Eddie Alvarez obviously hasn't been the same in the last couple of years here as well, even in his the end of his UFC reign. So we're in a very much, I think, a new era. I put out the tweet and said, who is the best pound for pound? And a lot of people obviously said Amanda Nunes, but Amanda Nunes is number one of the women's, but I think we're better off to separate out men and women when we're talking about this. But I think almost everyone said Usman, apart from Nunes. Almost everyone. A lot of people said Volkanovski as well. I think Phil over in Bloody Elbow was saying about Volkanovski. A lot of people kind of chimed in and agreed. And I think up until a couple of months ago, maybe people would have said Adesanya as well. You'd have foo for Ngannou. But I think, after that, I'm looking at the rankings here, and you have Poirier, Miocic, Blachowicz, Max Holloway, Figueiredo. Some obviously very good guys there, but guys who are not maybe getting the 10 or 15 wins in a row that we've seen out of guys to get there to the very top. And I feel like it's a very interesting and a kind of a cool time for MMA, because over the next couple of years, say if Khabib stays gone, and if we don't see much of John Jones, there is going to be a new greatest fighter in the world. And I know Graeme, you're a great advocate for saying the greatest fighter in the world at the moment is the greatest fighter of all time, just because of how quickly the game moves. And I think we're at that kind of precipice now where we're moving on to a new era of great fighters. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely up for debate a lot. Like, in the past we've had like really dominant champions like, GSP, Anderson Silva, things like that, and even John Jones. Now, if you look at who's like the longest reigning champion, Adesanya, coming off a loss at a different weight, I know, but you could make an argument for him, and you were saying people were, but I don't think there's like any standout that you could say, oh, that's definitely the pound for pound, or it's between these two. It's kind of up for grabs at the moment. As you said, the game's going to change, and everybody's so well rounded. Everybody's able to, not everybody, but nearly all the fighters are able to, pretty much easily fend off like submissions that aren't like from high level guys. We're not seeing people, as you say, like jiu-jitsu's dead or whatever, and we make a joke about arm bars when they happen, just because people are so evolved, and there's no easy fights now, you know what I mean? And even at the top of the divisions, like there's no like kingpin that's been there, like, DJ, how many times was it? 9 or 10 times he defended his belt. Anderson 8 or 9 times. GSP 6, something like that. Jones around the same. That's I don't see that happening for a little while here, while this kind of influx of kind of prospects for the best fighter in the world kind of even themselves out, or it plays out. If you ask me, like, who's going to be the best fighter in the world in 2 years, I've no idea.
Yeah, and even if you look at the divisions,
that's a really good thing as well.
I think it is, actually, because like that's the issue now in women's MMA a little bit, because apart from maybe the strawweight division, but you have Valentina, who's dominant. Obviously, she's a very tough matchup coming up in Jessica Andrade, which we'll speak about next week. And in Nunes, in the other two divisions, just absolutely dominant altogether. Amanda Nunes, that is. So we get to Nina Nunes in a while. But if you look at the divisions, I'll just run quickly through them. And this is a very obviously pointed, maybe not negative, but like if you look at Figueiredo, he drew, and you said there's no easy matchups. I think a lot of people probably would have said Brandon Moreno was an easy matchup. Okay, I didn't think it was the best decision in the world, but a close fight, and he drew that one. Sterling, we know what happened there with Jan. Volkanovski, two of the closest title fights we've ever had, with Max Holloway coming up in his last fight. No lightweight champion at the moment, because Khabib is gone. Usman, obviously the standout, which everyone is talking about, but he's some tough matchups coming up. If a lot of people fancy Edwards, he's a close fight with Covington, but I think he's a standout at the moment. Adesanya, obviously at middleweight, as you mentioned, is a standout, but just lost to Blachowicz. Blachowicz himself, I think a lot of people talk him down because of John Jones gone from the division, so he doesn't maybe stand out, even though that's not his fault, And then you have Francis Ngannou, who obviously just won the belt, but then the whole Jones thing is around him as well. So there's no I couldn't have said that about Anderson Silva at almost any point of his career. Maybe after Chael Sonnen, you could have said, oh yeah, Chael Sonnen beat him for 4 rounds. If they're rematch again, Chael will beat him. But at most points of his career, I don't think you could have made that big argument about him that way, or about GSP that way. And I think that's not that's not a negative, I don't think, for MMA or for the UFC. I think it's a positive, as you mentioned. It's just the sport has evolved so much that anyone like in the top 5 or 6 of these divisions is giving the champion a very, very tough matchup. And I see lads over in, as we'll get to the Vittori in a few minutes, but I see lads in the Patreon group talking about a lot to lads going to decisions these days. And I think decisions are going to become more and more prevalent in MMA over the next few years, just because it's going to be tougher to finish lads. It's going to be tougher to submit them and to knock them out because of, you know, just the intricacies of the game are becoming more known by, I think, everyone. I still think there's a long way to go because MMA, there's so much and there's so much to learn, and it's difficult to be really, really good at everything, but we're going that way and we're getting better, and I think best practices are improving and everything like that. So it's a very, very interesting and fun time for MMA. I'd really think I think in the world of MMA and like the UFC, where they were going to go and TV deals and stuff, we were in a big transition there. I think maybe 18 months ago or a year ago, I did a state of the UFC. I think that's settled down a little bit now. The UFC have their TV deal, Bellator have their TV deal. You know, they have kind of, there doesn't seem to be much free agency at the moment, so that's kind of settled. But now I think we're settling into who is becoming the best. Like Bellator have their rankings now, and we can kind of see more clearly who's going to become the best in Bellator. And with Pitbull versus AJ McKee, it's a huge fight. And with the UFC as well, I think things are about to not settle down, but settle themselves down due to the fights we have coming up over the next while. So it's in a boring week for MMA. I think I found something exciting in it. There wasn't many great fights, but I feel like over the next while we have once we get this Masvidal Usman fight out of the way, I think then in that division it's going to be mega, and we will talk about the middleweight division in a second, but you know, the lower weight classes kind of take care of themselves as well. But it's I'm looking forward to see who kind of emerges as that next guy. We all know in the women's divisions we have 2 very much emergent top of the food chain, and maybe 3 if you talk about Zhang Weili, and if she wins next week as well, or Rose in the other way around. But yeah, it's interesting to see what the men do. So let's transition here when we're talking about the greatest of all time into let's talk about ONE FC first.
Just before you go on. Yeah, oh yeah, great. Because I was going to say about DJ, do you think you're kind of saying like that's it? He's not one of the best, or he's not the best in the world anymore. Mm-hmm. But do you think, like, you know, if that was under different rules in the UFC, do you think he would have been finished there? Like, probably not. You know what I mean? And maybe he comes back.
I think he would have. I think it was the uppercut that actually caused the damage more than the knee on the ground itself. No, the knee on the ground definitely finished him.
It definitely hurt him, but yeah. Like, you know, maybe he would have been, but even if that was like, you know, that didn't happen and he just went out and lost, that could have just been a bad day at the office. You know, maybe the motivation wasn't there. Maybe if he came back to the UFC, you know, I wouldn't be ruling DJ out kind of completely at all. Like, you know,
I wouldn't either.
You know, he went in against a good guy. He lost. Mm-hmm. These things happen in MMA. He's fought a lot of fights. You know what I mean? He's been in the cage a lot of time, and everybody gets caught. Like anybody can get hit with a nice uppercut from a experience or from a skilled opponent.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how DJ reacts to this. You know, is he going to be remotivated to go again, or is he going to be like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this shit? Like,
I think this is actually where it's good to have the nuance of a podcast to be able to discuss this, because I put this out during the week and a lot of people are kind of like roaring at me, go, oh, Demetrius Johnson loses once and you think he's no more good. Now, I still think Demetrius Johnson is the greatest fighter we've ever seen. Absolutely, make no mistake about that. But when you're talking about pound for pound, it's a current thing, you know. And if someone loses, I think they're kind of off the pound for pound list or away from it anyway. Unless, you know, Demetrius Johnson goes up and he fights fucking Volkanovski at 145. That's a little bit of a different thing. Even you see Adesanya on the list. He lost to Blachowicz, and he's still above Blachowicz if I'm not mistaken, or he was recently anyway. So, you know, I don't know, do I agree with that totally? But Demetrius Johnson, the weird thing about this is, right, as well, a lot of people are kind of saying, oh, Adriano Moraes is much bigger than him, and this is actually a 135 fight and all. And I think that's true, but Adriano Moraes has fought at 125. He was a champion over in Brazil at 125. So it's not like Demetrius Johnson has gone out there fighting guys, you know, that couldn't make 125 and that they're gaming the system or something like that. Now, he was much
bigger. I don't know if he can make 125 now.
That's the thing.
Because he did look a lot bigger. Like maybe in the past when he had to make 125, he'd make them adjustments in his camp, restrict calories early, all that stuff. So he doesn't have to do that, so that's definitely a factor in there as well. But DJ didn't have to cut the weight either. So
but Demetrius Johnson, for me, I believe he's a 115 or more than a 125er, to be honest. They look at him at the weekend, or last Windsor, whenever it was, and he did not look like the cut Demetrius Johnson that we've seen before. Now, look, I'm not making excuses for him or anything. He got beat by the better fighter, and a lot of people are making the excuse of, and I know you didn't do that because you believe in the rule set, and we know the rule set to have, but the knee on the ground is like, oh, he wouldn't have lost if it was in America, and maybe he wouldn't, but that doesn't matter. That's the rule set that they have there. It's allowed, and he lost fair and square. Adrian Moraes is a very, very good fighter, and he deserves it. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter, to be honest. It doesn't matter if Demetrius is as good as he ever was. It doesn't matter if he wasn't in the shape he would normally be. It doesn't matter if he was beaten by a bigger guy. He was beaten. He was beaten fair and square, and that's that. And when that happens, I just think you're immediately off the pound for pound list at the moment. That doesn't mean he's off the list for the greatest of all time. And I actually hate that as well. I was a big advocate for when Rousey lost those 2 fights to not forget how great of a fighter she was when everyone seemed to be doing it. And I think it was with Rousey, she was a kind of an unlikable sort of character as well, so it made it easier for people. But just because someone loses, Demetrius Johnson has lost before. Everyone loses in MMA unless your name is Khabib Nurmagomedov and the judges favour you over Gleison Tibau. But it's a natural thing. It doesn't mean Demetrius Johnson wasn't a great fighter in his head. It doesn't mean he's still not a great fighter. It just means he's not the best in the world at the moment. You couldn't call him the pound for pound best when there's a guy out there like Adrian Moraes who just beat him. So maybe if you want to call him the pound for pound best, that's it. But in the fight itself, I suppose, if we're analysing that, I went back and I did the rewatch of, I believe it was Demetrius' last fight, if I'm not mistaken. So let me click into it here. But it was a fight over in 1FC anyway, and to be honest, I thought it was a couple of fights ago. It was in the end of 2019, so it was, the last time he fought was in 2019, so it wasn't too far away from the last time he fought. And I still thought he looked quick, he looked good in all areas. But if you look at Demetrius as well, he's 34 years of age now, 35 this year. With smaller guys, it's a little bit different as well. When you lose that little bit of speed, when you get a little bit older, it is going to be tougher for the smaller guys, I think. And look, with everyone in MMA, with everyone in every sport, it usually doesn't get better unless you're maybe a heavyweight MMA when age comes. But for Demetrius, I didn't think he was as fast in this fight maybe as he was in the other fights, and I think Moraes' ability as well kind of helped with that, because Demetrius coming in, he was getting caught with those uppercuts and those little knees to the body inside, and Moraes was just not making it easy on him in any way. And that uppercut, that was a beautiful shot that he landed, the uppercut inside, and obviously the grounded knee then was a beautiful shot as well. But I think he would have finished him anyway, even if there weren't grounded knees, to be honest. Now, we'll never know that, but I thought the fight was going to be stopped at the uppercut, and I didn't even see the grounded knee because of the camera angle the first time around, and then they showed it again. I was like, oh yeah, okay. But it was a beautiful performance from Moraes. He did everything against the toughest matchup you could possibly have in a Demetrius Johnson. He did fantastic. What did you think of the performance of both guys?
Oh well, yeah, it was an absolutely brilliant performance. You can't take anything away. Like we're talking about DJ the whole time, but he went in there, he finished comprehensively one of the best, if not the best of all time, as we've been talking about. So you can't take anything away there. Like, we talked about it before the podcast, or before the fight on the podcast, how out there in the wilderness, like out there in no man's land in 1FC, is DJ motivated the same after all he's achieved and all? Can he, like, when you've achieved so much, can you kind of at mid-30s be as motivated to fight some guy people nobody outside of hardcores has even heard of? You could see why it might be hard to motivate yourself. But maybe now, a loss, the sting of that, the desire will come back. It might be the best thing that happened to DJ. Maybe it'll give him the kick up the ass that he wanted, or that he needed, or maybe it'll be where he realizes he doesn't need this anymore. So I'm very interested to see what happens after this. Like, I'd be even interested to see what kind of shape he's in fight week, the next fight, if he fights. As you said, he wasn't in wasn't in like, you know, DJ shape, and I know he doesn't have to make that weight, but even when he was fighting at 135 in the UFC, he looked in better nick, like. So maybe there was some kind of injury going on. We don't really know. We don't really know what was going on, but even if he lost fair and square, like which he did, like from all indication, you know, this could easily, you know, reinvigorate him and make him come back. I think DJ, like, you know, I'd love to see him back in the UFC, but I think I don't know. I think with Dana and the lighter weight's not really drawing and stuff like that, I think it's become much more unlikely now with that loss. Like, you know, if Figueiredo could win a couple more in the UFC and you could bring DJ back in as the guy who never lost it and has been, you know, ragdolling guys on ONE FC or whatever, it probably sells a bit more. But also when something happens out and, you know, when a tree falls in the forest, no one's there to see it. Like, do most fans even know that fight happened? Like,
yeah, and ONE FC had terrible numbers on TNT as well this week, coming after AEW, which I think AEW had a bad week this week because it was like the last ever week of NXT wrestling, and the reason I said that is because ONE FC was right after, so it got the lead in from it, so it got a smaller lead in and didn't keep any of them. I think it had 195,000 people watching it, which is absolutely atrocious when you have Demetrius Johnson and Eddie Alvarez both on the card. So yeah, it's from that point of view, it's not great for them. But, you know, it's an interesting one, and Demetrius is a guy who, you know, as well, but he can bounce back, and as you said there, I think it's good. Maybe a loss will help him if he is lacking that motivation. We've seen it. You know, it's a long told story at this stage of MMA. Someone drops out at a big show, and look, they either motivate themselves, say like a Ryan Bader or someone like that, and they come back and they win belts all over the place, or they go like, you know, a Shea Mills and just lose fight after fight after fight outside of there. And it's, you know, it's an old told story, I suppose. But a few people have talked about the weight classes in ONE FC as well, and that their lack of like telling us what's going on with the weight classes, and that's another interesting thing as well. But I suppose that's a discussion for another day. The Eddie Alvarez fight as well on this was I suppose an interesting one to me, how I saw it. So if anyone didn't see it, it ended in disqualification. The fight was on the ground. Eddie had his head right into Yuri Lapicus's head, so he was kind of in full guard, if I'm not mistaken, and he was kind of throwing shots to the head of Lapicus. Now, when Lapicus kind of the fight kind of got to where Eddie was thrown towards the side / back of the head of Lapicus, and the referee, I think
he was aiming for the ear.
Yeah, well, yeah. What happened was the referee,
and Lapicus was like turning the back of his head to try and make him hit the back of his head.
Look, the referee warned him. There was definitely one shot that was to the back of the head without a shadow of a doubt, and the referee warned him. But to me, a lot of people are kind of mistaken by like, he's hitting him in the spine, he's hitting him in the neck. You're allowed to hit someone in the neck as long as it's not the back of the neck and like the mohawk from the top of your head right down. If you're hitting someone in the side of the face, in the side of the neck, that's absolutely legal. There's nothing wrong with that. And to me, the vast majority of those shots were from there. Now, and that doesn't even matter. That's the semantics of where did you think the shots landed. And I think one or two were, one definitely was to the back of the head. You could argue maybe two, and the others were kind of connecting just behind the ear. But that's, whether you believe that or not, I actually don't think it matters for this, because the referee warned him, right? The referee warned him you're hitting the back of the head. And as he did that, and as he said it the second time, Lapicus started to hamming up, and he jumped backwards as if he'd been hurt by a big shot, which he absolutely hadn't been. And then Eddie Alvarez hit him with a big hammer fist, an absolutely legal shot, which was the finishing blow. Now, some people say afterwards then there was another shot to the back of the head, but when you're moving like that after you've just been hit with a big hammer fist, that's not an illegal shot. It doesn't matter if it hits you to the back of the head. That guy is moving so quickly that Eddie Alvarez could hit him, and if it hits him to the back of the head, you can't call Eddie Alvarez responsible for that. So for me, a disqualification, I don't think so. Like to me, the referee allowed Lapicus to make the call for him, and then was like, okay, yeah, I probably should have stepped in there, and then disqualified him. You can't do that. You can't go back and re-ref it. You know, to me, Lapicus refed the situation, put himself into a bad situation, and was knocked out by a legal blow from Eddie Alvarez. So I think that's a TKO win for Eddie Alvarez. I know Eddie came out and kind of said that as well, and usually in this situation I wouldn't agree with the fighter and their biased point of view towards it, but I just, if Lapicus hadn't reffed the fight himself, and then the ref decided to step in and Eddie Alvarez had knocked him out, absolutely a disqualification. I think 100%. But when the referee wasn't the one who stepped in before Lapicus decided to step in himself, basically, play it up and put himself in a position where he wasn't intelligently defending himself, you know, I would have said absolutely. But when he did that, I think that's a TKO. How did you see it? What way did you think it should have ended?
Yeah, well, like, you know... I'm just thinking, you know, is it intelligent defense to turn the back of your head towards the punch so that the guy can't or shouldn't be allowed to punch you there anymore? I suppose it is.
Yeah. But you like that, I think
that's like putting your finger down on the ground. You know, it's like putting your finger down on the ground so he can't knee in the head. And not in UFC, but in UFC. So I suppose it is intelligent defense, but he was turning his head in order to try and make Eddie Alvarez hit him in the back of the head. He was trying to like use as an out, I think. Yeah. And as you said, he like hammed it up and basically and told the ref what to do, and the ref just went along with it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think the wrong decision. I suppose he was intelligent defending himself, but Eddie Alvarez was throwing a flurry of punches, and most of them were on the ear, or most of them were completely legal. A couple of them might have slipped only because of the strange turning of the head towards, or back of the head towards the punch, which is usually not what happens. And Eddie Alvarez is in the heat of the moment, throwing punches, about to finish this guy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the ref got it really wrong and was kind of just bullied by was bullied into his decision, or didn't have the balls to be like, no, you're TKO'd, mate.
Yeah, and I think where Eddie was as well, his face was covered by I think it was the arm, so he couldn't really see what he was hitting. And when the ref warned him, he tried to adjust, and Eddie kind of called it very well on the replay.
At the end, when you're about to finish the guy, you know what I mean? Yeah, when you're about to finish the guy, you're throwing punches. You don't expect the guy to turn the back of his head.
Yeah. The last two punches where he was finished, there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, the first few you can argue whether they were back of the head or not. I didn't think most of them were. I think a couple of them were. But when your man like jumped backwards, when he hit him with the hammer fist and then hit him with the other shot, which was I think probably to the back of the head as well. But now you can't call that one because there was so much moving. I don't think there was anything wrong with those ones. Like, those ones weren't those ones weren't illegal shots, and the finishing shots were legal blows. They were just legal blows in a position which Lapicus put himself, because he thought illegal blows came before and decided to ref the fight himself. So I don't know. Look, it was one you could debate all day, I suppose. But I think we're both kind of on the same. And I think a lot of people look. Whether you think they're illegal blows or not illegal blows, the referee has to make that decision. If the ref had stepped in and go, right, you landed 5 or 6 illegal blows there, your man is hurt, he can't go on, that's a disqualification. I would have said fair enough, but that's not what happened. Your man decided to ref it himself. So anyway, elsewhere on the card there, Raymond Magomedov got a win over Tyler Maguire, who moved to 8-1, and our boy Rug came in as well. Just threw loads of shots, got the finish early in round 1 over Patrick Schmidt, who fell to 0-1, which tells you probably all you need to know about it. Another fantastic one. And look, the UFC or Bellator need to sign him up immediately. I think Bellator probably will, but like, this guy he's a fan favorite. He's very exciting. He's an absolute animal. And I think he's improving as well. You know, this could be one of these situations where people don't realize he's improving and don't realize he's getting good. And I think it might be too late if you're Sean Shelby or Mick Maynard or whoever you might be, because he might be snapped up elsewhere. So yeah, I think Rug needs to be signed by the UFC pretty soon. Maybe give him 1 or 2 more in one FC. Hopefully he's a bit of a contract there. They're doing a good job with him. But yeah, I can't wait until he moves on, because he's so brilliant. Right, let's talk about the UFC next, because I suppose a lot of people are waiting for us to talk about that, and then we'll snap back and talk about Bellator. This UFC card was pretty boring, to be honest. What did you think of the main event? Marvin Vettori, Kevin Holland. It was one of those ones where Vettori, apart from the first round, kind of dominated. And when you're dominating and it turns boring and you're on the verge of a title shot, that's never a good sign, is it?
Yeah, well, obviously Vettori kind of, he did what he needed to do to win handily, but yeah, you're in a big spot in the main event. I know it's not the biggest card, but it's UFC on ABC. It's not you're not buried on a random card, where nobody's going to notice if your fight was boring. But it's a short notice thing. Maybe that played into it a bit as well. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the exciting main event that everybody was hoping for. But on Vettori's party, he took a dangerous enough opponent on short notice and got another win. So he had a close loss to Adesanya a few fights ago. So obviously, if he can just keep winning, he needs to be back in that situation or back in that position to maybe get a title shot. So. If he goes out there in his next one and looks impressive, this will all be forgotten. But yeah, I think definitely not the impressive performance that maybe would have catapulted him into the discussion.
Yeah, I think the issue here for Vettori is this exact same thing happened to Kevin Holland a while back against Derek Brunson, 3 weeks ago. And Brunson probably beat him in more impressive fashion. And you're on the verge of a title shot and you need to do something. Like Kevin Holland, I think at this stage of his career, now I'm not saying he can't change it in the future, but I think he's proven he's not that high level quality yet. He's not in the title reckoning yet. He's a good top 10, top 15 guy at the moment. Could improve, could get better, but he is not there at the moment. And when he comes out after a round, Herb Dean asks him, "Can you see?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Can you see?" He's like, what does that mean? And then he like, I think, I don't know if people are kind of just willfully denying it or whatever, but there's absolutely no way he could see out of that eye for, what was it, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 2.5 rounds? He absolutely couldn't. And Vettori, every time he was throwing a shot, he was hurting him, he was rocking him backwards, he was getting him on the ground, he was able to land big ground and pound. Anytime he moved into a position, Holland wasn't moving, he was getting space, he wasn't going anywhere, and Vettori still couldn't finish him. Like, and you might say I'm being very harsh here, he dominated him, he won 50-44 on all three judges' cards, a 10-8, I don't know, I think it was the second, might have been a 10-8, but I think when you are right at the top of the division, when you have already been beaten by the champion, and when Robert Whittaker has already beaten by the champion too, and has gone in there looking great in all of his fights, you have to do something extra. And when you're not a likable character, when you're not really a big draw, I think you have to do something extra, and to me, Vettori just didn't do it when it was there for the taking as well. Now, Kevin Holland's not an easy out. He's a tough guy, fighting with one eye for half of that fight. Absolutely, take nothing away from Kevin Holland. And it was a good win for Vettori, don't get me wrong, but if this was a win, it was his first main event, and he was fighting, a top 15 against another top 15 guy, absolutely. But when you're fighting,
if he was fighting Till, which he was supposed to fight, maybe this was the game plan, for Till to kind of, stench it up, and he just goes, okay, we're just going to do this to Holland. Maybe that was part of it, and what he was already training to do. But yeah, definitely not the impressive performance. As you mentioned, he had a couple of chances to finish Kevin Holland. He had an arm triangle at one stage, and he just really kind of didn't know how to finish it. I think, I think he still has a lot of work to do. If he wants to actually, obviously he wants to make a run at being the actual champion. I think if he goes in against Izzy now like this again, and he loses again, which I think he probably would, then a third fight against Izzy, if Izzy stays at the top of the middleweight division, is a hard one to sell. So for Vettori, it's probably better if he has a couple of extra fights before getting back into title contention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at that performance anyway.
Absolutely. When you see the first round as well, obviously it started off with that big dick kick from Holland almost immediately after about 2 seconds. But Holland, I thought Holland won the first round. I know the judges didn't give it to him, but it was definitely a close round. He was landing more on the outside. Vettori got the takedown and didn't really do much with it, I thought. But I thought Vettori was taking too many shots in that first round, and the right way to go was with the takedowns after that. Got an early takedown in the second, the whole round of ground and pound. The eye was closing at the end of that round, so it was. I gave it 10-8 in the second round. But when the third round came, he had lots of control against the cage. He got some takedowns, but Vettori was kind of refusing to strike. And okay, when you lose the first round, or when it's close first round, you're kind of getting beaten on the feet in certain at certain times of the round. Fair enough, take it down and be a little bit a little bit weary of striking on the feet again. But when a guy's be
cautious.
Closest,
yeah.
When he's eye closes,
at one stage, or a couple of stages, he had him kind of stunned and shot for the legs against the cage, where a flurry there might have been the end. So yeah, he definitely was ultra cautious, which obviously isn't that exciting to watch, isn't going to propel you into people's hearts and minds and make them campaign for you or support you in a big fight next, or a title fight next.
Yeah, and it actually made it worse. It was at the end of such a boring week of MMA. Like, we had the ONE FC cards, which were maybe not boring, but I think a lot of people, when they saw Demetrius losing, and not a lot of people like Moraes as well and like the underdog, but they saw Demetrius losing, they were like, no. And then they saw the Alvarez disqualification, they were like, meh. The Bellator card that you get in a while was horrific. And this card, apart from a few nice submissions, was not great as well. But it kind of ended that out. But it wasn't a great win. Look, for Vettori's there or thereabouts. If you could get another fight, I think could be the best way for him forward. I would make Adesanya versus Whittaker 2 way before I'd make Vettori versus Adesanya 2. So I think get that going and get Adesanya another fight, or get Vettori another fight and see where he goes from there. But however, Arlen Allen and Sadiq Youssef, I think, was a very, very good fight for 2 rounds, and then Arlen Allen kind of got a bit tired in the third round just because he put on such a great pace. But I thought it was a fantastic performance from Allen, especially early. Like, he's such a confident guy in all aspects of his game early in this fight. It was actually unbelievable. And I've talked up Arlen Allen a lot over the last few years. I think he's really, really good. Doesn't get the fights he deserves, but he went a level above that, I think, in the first couple of rounds here. And if he can keep that going, over 3 rounds and over 5 rounds, this guy is right up there in title contention, because Sadiq Youssef is a very, very good fighter, and I thought it was a good performance. What do you think?
I do think, though, as you said, a couple of 5-round fights, I think that would be very beneficial to Allen. Yeah. Obviously, he got a bit tired, but he knows it's a 3-round fight, but he wouldn't, set such a high pace. He probably wouldn't, but maybe he needs a fight or two before he goes to the very top level, over 5 rounds, just to acclimatize to that, because it is, what is it, like 40% more or whatever, close to 40% more time in the cage that you potentially have to manage your cardio and everything for. So I think that would be beneficial. It's kind of a pity after how the main event turned out that this wasn't a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
This would have been a more interesting 5-rounder than the main event turned out to be. But maybe, an impressive win here against a really tough guy, like close enough fight, didn't have it all his own way. So, it's definitely a big win and a good learning experience for Allen. But I do think, I wouldn't be pushing him into a title fight or a number 1 contender fight yet. I'd like to see him do a couple of 5-round fights, not just because he got tired in this 3rd round, just because it's definitely beneficial to a young fighter who's never fought 5 rounds before they get into a title fight to have that experience under the belt. Yeah,
I think absolutely. We talk about that often in this podcast. You have to adjust it. I'd love to see him fight someone like a Daniga, and I know you guys fighting the Korean Zombie, but I think that fight would make a lot of sense. Maybe him versus a Josh Emmett or a Calvin Cade, or one of those guys above him in the rankings that might push him in towards the top 5, top 6. And then you're talking about the Ortegas, the Holloways, the top. Yeah, if he could get a 5-round fight against a Cater, maybe I think that'd be a good fight. But it's time. It's definitely time for Arnold Allen. It's definitely time to move him on, and a fantastic performance from him here. the two submissions I talked about then happened after that. Julian Marquez against Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey, for the first time in a while, was actually landing a few shots here against Julian Marquez, but Julian was landing his own.
He wasn't just waiting to counter. Yeah.
But I think Julian...
He got knocked out and choked out in this fight.
He did. But I think Julian was like giving him the opportunity. Like, Julian Marquez is a fun guy. He's a fun fighter, and it's always good to see him. I think he's won his last 3 wins in a row are all by submission, but kind of after knockdown. So that's always fun. You can kind of get a bit of both in there, and as everyone knows, I love a bit of a submission. And then we had McKenzie Dern getting an arm bar? An arm bar for McKenzie Dern? Like, we talked about it last week. I think I spoke to a few people about it. 7-2 McKenzie Dern wants to get the submission here. Nina Nunes, sorry, I'm looking at Wikipedia here. She is a very, very good fighter, and I would, if it was 2 years ago and McKenzie Dern is what she is now, I would have picked Nina Nunes to win this fight, but she is just after coming off of having a baby, which we saw with McKenzie Dern as well, is absolutely no easy task.
Yeah.
You had to, Dern was always the pick here, and I think Nina didn't look great physically, and I think that obviously is a thing that'll come back over the next year or so, and Dern was able to kind of just get inside us a little bit quicker. Once it gets to the ground, there's no stopping. I know it was only 12 seconds left in the end, but it was almost inevitable when she kind of got in that spiderweb position and was going for the armbar. But Dern looked good, didn't she? She was. Do you know what impressed me most about Dern? She kind of wasn't afraid to get hit going inside to try to get the clinch and try to get a takedown. That to me was the most impressive part from Dern. But good performance from her, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I thought Nunes before the fight might have, like, it was going to be a close decision, and I thought you might be able to get a close decision, able to fend off some of the takedowns. I thought Dern didn't look good at all in her last fight, and obviously coming off having a baby is a big thing, and maybe that one extra fight looked to have done wonders, and maybe the same will happen with Nunes in her next fight. But or answer, it's so strange calling her Nunes, you know what I mean? I think maybe, like, it'd be interesting to see how Nina looks in her next fight, because obviously having a baby and all that stuff is definitely not easy to just bounce back in there and look exactly the same as you did before. So obviously I think Dern, obviously she's really good on the ground, and she seems to be in much better shape than she was in her first few MMA fights. So it's kind of all coming together for her. But I still think, I wouldn't be pushing her either too quickly towards a title shot. I think let her develop for a while is a thing to do.
Yeah, 100%. I would totally agree with that, but a good performance nonetheless. Daniel Rodriguez gave a good performance as well. I think he's a very, very good fighter. But for Mike Perry, surely this is the end of his UFC run after all his issues. He looked absolutely atrocious, just so bad. He's lost 4 of his last 5 now, beating only Mickey Gall in the middle of that. I know the UFC like him for some reason, but God Almighty, he looked like a punching bag in here, just so bad. Took a lot of damage. The thing about Mike Perry is as well, he's taken so much damage in these fights that it's not going to get any better for him. Chins don't improve by fucking testing him. It was a tough one. But look, Daniel Rodriguez looks a very good fighter in that welterweight division, where there's lots of very good fighters. He's only lost to Nicholas Dalby in the last since his first MMA fight ever? No, one of his first 4 or 5 MMA fights ever. So he's beaten Tim Means, beaten Dwight Grant as well, and now Mike Perry. So he's right up thereabouts to be towards the rankings, I think, with a 14-2 record. So it was one of those fights where Rodriguez moves up, and I think Mike Perry maybe moving on after this. But it was one of those. In the undercard, then, there was some standouts. Nice to see Impa Kasangana on the opening fight come back after obviously being on the wrong end of the greatest knockout of all time in his last fight. So for him to come back and get the win over Sasha Palatnikov via rear naked choke in the second was very, very good. Da Ung Jun and Luis Saldana got decision wins as well. A lot of people crying about the Saldana win. Very, very, very solid judging, I thought, in that one. I thought he won the first round. He won like 3 minutes of the first round on the feet. Then there was a takedown, which Griffin did almost nothing with. Daniel Cormier literally said, "This is a position I used to use in wrestling to stall to get my win back." And he was in that position for maybe 90 seconds, and then Cormier scored the round for him. Like, I can't.
I think he tried to backtrack in the third round, was it? In the third round, towards the end, he was like, "Well, maybe it's easy to forget the first couple of minutes." So maybe he'd read a bit of, he'd had some tweets coming his way.
I don't know, but Dominic Cruz was. That was funny. John Anik threw to Dominic Cruz to try to get him to go on a rant about judging, and Cruz just no-sold it and just refused to do it. I don't know. It's. Like, I didn't think DC was as bad without Rogan there, but he's still pretty bad. Like Dominic Cruz, there was one fight. What fight was it? But there was someone getting like beautiful. I think it was Selecki against Miller, which was not a great fight, but he had beautiful top control at one stage, and Daniel Cormier was like telling a joke in the middle of it, and Cruz just interrupted him and cut like a beautiful promo for about 40 or 45 seconds about why the position was the way it is and why he couldn't get up from on top of him. And I was like, Jesus, this is what we need. This is the type of commentary we need. It was entertaining. It was informational. It was absolutely brilliant. And then Cormier just kind of laughing and sniggering in the background. Oh, he's the worst. He's so bad. But anyway, I'm not getting into another thing about him. Anyway,
we learned can you remember what he said one of his favorite words was? I can't remember. It was some some Bisbing says, and he shouted on for like a minute about it being his favorite word.
Feathered or something.
Or one of his favorite words.
It was like feathered or something, or I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, who cares?
I can't even remember.
Jack Shore as well put on a fantastic display against Hunter Azure. Split decision. I don't know about that. I thought Jack Shore won. I scored a 30-27, but it was definitely a closer fight than that. You could tell Azure is one of these guys who's not used to losing. He just refused to lose in lots of positions, but Shore was just winning all of those positions at the same time. It was a fantastic performance. He's just so good everywhere, and I think Jack Shore's wrestling and his kind of chain wrestling and his ground game is so good. When he puts an extra bit of striking in, now his striking is good, but I think when his striking technique continues to improve and he gets a bit more power behind it as well, I think he is going to be an awful issue for people in this bantamweight division, because he is very, very, very good. And I assume you're very impressed as well by Jack Shore here, were you? It's hard not to be impressed by Jack Shore, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's definitely a good performance and a good win, but he'll face a lot better competition as he comes up, and we'll have to see. I wouldn't be getting too carried away too quickly or anything. I think he definitely clearly won that. As you said, it was all the rounds were close, but he was able to do enough in nearly all positions to edge it out. I think he needs a handful of fights in the UFC to develop.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's easy for these guys. When there's not that many of your, not that many English guys in there or whatever. It's easy to kind of be, this is the next guy, and jump on them early. Or Welsh guy, sorry. It's easy to jump on them. Yeah, it's easy to jump on them. We've done it with Irish guys. We've seen Tom Breese, other guy in England and Scotland. We've seen it Stevie Ray and stuff. And if you get pushed too quickly, you end up kind of derailed. So, he's undefeated. 14-0. It'd be easy to say, we need to see him in there against some top name, maybe a really experienced guy. But I think slow to roll is the way to go here. If you can build him up to 20-0 or 18-0 and with nice development fights, I think that would be the path to take with him.
Yeah, I agree. I love
when guys are undefeated, it's always a push to try and get them into the thing. But I think we've seen how detrimental that can be. Guys can lose and bounce back even better. We've talked about that a lot as well. But there's no need to rush him into anything, I don't think.
It's true. The old dog is telling you to put him back to. Is 100% right. Jarostano and Jorgen De Castro was the one fight in this fight that I predicted incorrectly on the FightPicks app this week. I got 11 out of 11 last week of Bellator. I got 11 out of 12.
And I still beat you on points as well.
Yeah, you did. You fucker.
Even though you got.
We've been doing well, in fairness, the two of us. I got 12 out of 13 here. We've been doing fantastic.
If I hadn't missed that week, I'd be running away with it. Yeah. I'll just have to use that for the rest of the season. Yeah. If only for that week.
It's a typical Liverpool fan in there. One player got injured 9 months ago, we would have won the league. Typical Liverpool fan. But yeah, while we're at it, actually, jump on over there to your Play Store, your iOS store, and download the FightPicks app. You'll see the blue and white logo. Download it, sign up, and then go to Join League and just search for Severe MMA. You'll see us there. I think we still have the biggest league on the platform. We've like 207 people in it now, so it's absolutely huge. I'm right up there near the top of the league. Hold on, I'll just check the league. But I've had some. I must say now, I've had some fantastic weeks. Kaelin is walking away with it. I'm in fourth here, so I'm doing really, really well. Joint fourth with Corey and a few more as well. Our boy Holtberg is up right near the top. Eno is up there as well. Graeme, I'm going down through it here. I can't see you. Philly is in number 33. Oh, you're number 36, so you're not too far away. So, Sean Denny's in 41, Harry Kearns down in 47, Ian Garry's biggest fan, Team Torres, Andrew McGahan 51, so there's a lot of people in there, Kel Allen, top 62 there, so, it's great fun, and if you want to sign up, FightPicks.com as well, you can create your own leagues, you can join other people's leagues, there's other leagues as well as ours, but join the Severe MMA League, and we'll see how it goes, FightPicks.com, check it out. Yeah, and so I had McDessie as well in this one. I wasn't sure because Bahamondes is so much bigger than him, but McDessie fought the perfect kind of small man fight in this one, didn't he?
I think if, obviously if some buts and all that stuff when McDessie landed that big punch, but I think that big punch really affected the fight. I think, I don't think McDessie is the best fighter. He's a good seasoned striker, but I don't think, I think Bahamondes, he just needs time. I think he definitely will be a better fighter than McDessie, but, he definitely has a good body type for, he's long. He just needs to learn. He just needs time to learn how to use his kind of body and his length to his advantage more, and maybe sharpen up his strikes a little bit. Like, I know that they started to come slow, but maybe that was because of the big punches he took, and he did do a lot of damage he did land a lot of shots to cosmetic damage to Masvidal's face, but I think Masvidal was always comfortable. Or not Masvidal. McDessie was always McDessie was always comfortable. The two of us are fucking very bad. After he landed that knockdown.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Sorry.
I was talking to someone about it last night. It's I would tend to agree with everything you said there, especially about, like, McDessie's not the best fighter in the world, and I think Bahamondes will be better as well. But when you're making, I think it's his UFC debut, one of his first UFC fights anyway, not that experienced. I know he's had like 17 or 18 fights, I think, after looking last night off the top of my head, but to fight a guy like John McDessie, who has made his whole career out of being the smaller guy, basically, is a very, very tough thing to come into the UFC and fight. And I would tend to agree with you, but this is a great learning fight for him. I know he got a lot of damage and everything like that, so maybe there's better ways to learn. But good stuff by McDessie, but a very, very good learning fight. It was a split decision.
Crazy scorecard in there. One of the judges gave the fight to Bahamondes. I don't know what the fuck that was about.
Yeah, there was the 1 and 2 I think were pretty dominant for McDessie, but who knows? We'll probably get given out to. There was a couple of odd judging scorecards in the last night, but I think most of them and all the right people won the fights anyway, so we can't give out too much. And the last fight from that fight, brilliant. He looked like title contender in this fight. Not to go too mad about it, but like that last fight just wasn't Gamrot, wasn't. This was the real Matthias Gamrot. He was brilliant, I thought. Yeah,
coming off a not very interesting, highlight-worthy event, I think he's probably, the one that got the most traction even on social media. Anyway, after I saw a lot of people tweeting about it, a lot of people retweeting the various clips of the finish and stuff, and we talk about the Polish community, MMA community, like they're big MMA fans. Massive, they'll get behind their guy, and I think if Gamrot can go out and replicate performances like that, he can be a big star for the UFC in Europe.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've seen it with Joanna, and you see it with Jan Blachowicz now as well, and you kind of see both of them tweeting about him as well. So yeah, absolutely. And Gamrot was, I'm sure we'll have Sean Denny on again to talk about it on the Chasing Pat, but he was one of the biggest stars in KSW and one of the biggest stars in Poland as well. And they absolutely loved him. Even I'd say bigger than Jan and Joanna, but obviously Joanna and now Jan became huge, I suppose, through the UFC more. So even though Jan was big in KSW as well, but Gamrot was a big star there. So if he could go from being the big star in KSW to being the big star in the UFC, it'll be absolutely huge. You know, we saw Gamrot fighting in KSW in Dublin, and the fans absolutely loved him. So you know, it says a lot for Norman Park too. He was in a lot of close fights with Gamrot. So Norman Park is still he should still be in the UFC, and I think a lot of people agree with that. But you know, he's doing other things at the moment. But however, next week's card, then before we get to Bellator, we'll just quickly run through this one here. There's some very, very good fights in it. On the undercard, you have Tony Gravely against Antonio Burchak. Jessica Penne is coming back here. Alexander Romanov is on the card. Gerald Mearshart coming back after his loss against the boy wonder is on this card as well. Ricardo Ramos even against Bilalgio. Luis Pena is on the card. Razak Al Hassan.
What do you think about that Drakkar Klose Jeremy Stevens fight?
I think that's a fantastic fight. Who do you think will win that? It's a tough one to call, I think.
I think Drakkar Klose. I'm just looking at the odds though, and he's the underdog. Like,
is he?
I think Drakkar Klose is. Yeah.
Could you see him kicking the legs off of
Jeremy Stevens? Like, yeah, and Jeremy Stevens, you know, he's from the old school. You know, I think the game's kind of developed beyond him, and I think you know. He does load up on shots, and he is dangerous. He does have power, but
hardest hitting 145.
Everybody knows that, you know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but everybody knows that, you know. And if you come in with a good game plan against Jeremy Stevens and you're a well-rounded fighter, I think it's your fight to lose. Yeah,
I think whatever that fight will be, I think it'll be a fun stand-up fight for most of it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think that's a good co-main event. I see it's Andrei Arlovsky, Chase Sherman here. I think that fight has changed like in the last day or something, but that's a pretty good fight. I like Chase. I think he was a goofy kind of guy before, but he's kind of settled down a little bit, and he's won his last few fights, or some of his last few fights anyway. So he's looking good. If he could beat Arlovsky, that'd be a huge move for Chase Sherman. So it'd be really good. And then in the main event, we have Robert Whittaker.
Probably have to favour Arlovsky though there, really. Like,
would you? Yeah, I probably would as well, actually. Over decision. Yeah. That'd be interesting. What do you think of Whittaker Gastelum? Like, I think this is the old kind of adage of it depends what Gastelum turns up. You know, if the very, very best Gastelum turns up, he absolutely has a chance. But how often does the best Gastelum absolutely turn up? I would have to pick Robert Whittaker here. I just think there's too much. Robert Whittaker just does too much. I think his wrestling is too good. I don't think Gastelum will be able to take him down. I think he's known as a striker, and the amount of strikes he throws, I think, will be just too much for Gastelum. I don't think Gastelum will be able to knock him out. Now he might. He's good power and stuff as well. But I think if he doesn't knock him out, or if he doesn't hurt him badly a couple of times throughout the fight, I think Robert Whittaker will end up outpointing him. I think it'll be a good fight, though. I think it'll be a fun fight. Gastelum is a good technical fighter, but I think Whittaker's just a little bit better.
Yeah, I like Gastelum, but, you know, it's been about 3 years since we've last seen him kind of go out there and perform. He looked like he's really put it all together, you know. He looked like he had the striking crisp, and obviously we all know his jiu-jitsu was good. It's always kind of been good. Back in the Ultimate Fighter days, he kind of used that to win the whole show. I think Whittaker obviously maybe isn't exactly like at the top of his game like he used to be, but I think Gastelum's fallen more, and I think this should be a handy enough one for Whittaker, to be honest. I think he might put him away in the first couple of rounds. Yeah,
I would. I don't know. I think he'd probably decision him, but I wouldn't be surprised if, depending on what Gastelum turns up. But yeah, a fun fight anyway, and a fun main event. Obviously,
if we see Gastelum on the scale looking in top shape, then maybe, you know, that would change it. But it's been so long since we've seen that I'm not expecting that.
Yeah, that's very true. Right, let's talk a little bit about Bellator. Bellator 256 went down this Friday night. On the undercard, the standout one was Diana Avsaragova, who got an all-merciful knockout over Tara Gaff. Just deaded her all together, put her to absolute sleep, and she looks very, very, very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing her next. Upwards throughout the card in Dan Moret, Goiti Yamaguchi, close fight. I thought Yamaguchi won, but not a huge robbery, I don't think, in this one either. Tough loss for Yamaguchi. Got in a few good positions, but wasn't able to finish it. Kat Zingano came in here and got a win over Olivia Parker. The biggest thing that bothered me about this was they kept talking about how Olivia Parker went into a gym to learn how to boxercise and to get fit and stuff, and now she's fighting Kat Zingano 6 fights into her career. I'm like, so you're putting Kat Zingano in a place where she's going to be fighting Cyborg next, and you're putting her in against a boxercise person who went there to get fit fucking 2 years ago.
They have their new rankings, and they're like, she's a third in the world or whatever in
it's ridiculous.
Bellator.
Oh my god!
Yeah, this woman off the street.
I could not believe it. I actually couldn't believe it. It's why, even if that's true, why would you say that on the broadcast? It's like it not only makes the promotion.
Maybe mention it once, but don't just harp on it.
Yeah, but it makes promotion look bad. It makes Kat Zingano's win look fucking terrible. Like, if you're a fighter, you talk up your opponent, or if you're the promotion, you talk up the opponent, make it look like, oh, she's this up and comer, she's 4-1, she's the next big thing. And Kat Zingano goes in there and beats her. It's like, come on, we don't need to. We don't need this. Like in MMA at the top level, you're talking about this. It was really bad. Also, it was an armbar, which made sense in this level of opponent. But yeah, I'm this is kind of being a bit hypocritical because I'm an advocate for kind of telling the truth and stuff. But like, they don't usually tell the truth, and this is the place where you don't tell the truth. This is the place where you fucking deny it, and you try to build up Kat Zingano, but however that didn't happen. But Kat looked good, and this was a perfect. I actually have nothing wrong with the matchmaking. I think the matchmaking was grand because I think you needed to get Kat a win like this, and she did a good job going in there and getting it. So fair play to her. Adam Barracks. He looked good, I thought, against Jeremy Kennedy, and not a great fight either, but he got the win. Same could be said for Liz Carmouche against Vanessa Porto, and that was kind of a one you kind of fall asleep during. And then Ryan Bader against Lyoto Machida. I thought Lyoto looked fantastic for a round. His kicks to the body almost knocked Bader out with a head kick as well. Looked really good, but his hands looked slow. He looked like a 42-year-old. And then Bader just started to get the better of him, started to get takedowns.
He took over.
Absolutely took over and won the fight. But Lyoto looked old, didn't he?
Yeah, Machida just looked old, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah, he did. When you're that kind of guy, one-shot guy, using the speed to kind of counter, when you lose that speed, it definitely puts you in. It's harder to overcome than maybe there may be a different other striking styles might be. But obviously Bader's a better fighter than he was when they fought the first time, and a better fighter than I think he was when he was in the UFC. So it's definitely he's not like, oh, you need to retire right now, you're not able to compete at any level. But I think maybe his championship days are over, and they could put him in nice fights if they wanted to and use him as a showcase, or eventually kind of build people off him. But yeah, I don't know, it's a little bit sad to see.
Yeah, it was towards the end of that. It was definitely sad to see.
Once you lose that speed, you're not getting it back.
Yeah, it could have been stopped at a couple of stages as well. I think maybe by the corner more than the referee. But yeah, it was definitely sad to see near the end. Bellator also have a pretty good card coming up next week, but ONE FC have another card on Wednesday. They're going to have cards now for the next while. The standout one, and that is Christian Lee against Timothy Natsukin. That's a pretty good fight, but they also have a couple of other ones as well. So if you're tuning in to see that on Wednesday, I believe it'll be on YouTube on this part of the world.
You're not excited for Mr. Wonderful?
Mr. Wonderful, Phil Davis. Yeah, I am. I have this card opened here. I'm more excited for Corey. What are you laughing at? Nimkov is.
I don't know. Phil Davis. Phil Davis fights the main event, a rematch. Nemkov versus Davis too. Like, oh my god.
I think that says it all. Phil Davis fights. Nah. He's just, oh my god, he's Mr. Wonderful, like, for one of the most boring fighters in the history of MMA. Remember that time Phil Davis was injured and he was out for like 2 years, and then everyone was like, oh, he's going to be the next big thing coming back, and was it Rashad Evans destroyed him, and he's like, oh wait, no, and then he had like 48 boring fights after. Yeah, no.
Didn't Machida like destroy him, like pick him apart, and then end up losing the decision somehow as well?
Yeah.
But the funniest part was when people used to think he was John Jones, and he just played along with it and just pretended he was John Jones. But things to be John Jones. He should have kept that gimmick up.
He should have, yeah. Outside of the cage, he's pretty funny in fairness. He's like the German Conor McGregor, that lad who got absolutely destroyed there recently. But look, these things happen in MMA. But yeah, I think Nimkov is a very, very good fighter, and I think he'll probably end up winning that. But Corey Anderson versus Yagshmuradov is a very good fight in the undercard as well, and that's in the Bellator 205-pound tournament, if I'm not mistaken. So this tournament is moving along here, and it's pretty good. There's some good fights in that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Yashi won that one over Beast in 25-8. But yeah, look, it's some good fights there. Paul Daley's back as well against Sabah Massi. It was a 10-year anniversary of Daley versus Diaz this week, so an absolute classic fight that was. So it's kind of a good time for Paul Daley to be coming back. I don't think Bellator did that on purpose, but however, Lance Gibson Jr. is on this card as well at 3-0. The Marquez Jackson on the card. Cal Elbrickson, who's been around here fighting Victor Nimkov. Julia Budd is back in the car. Pedro Carvalho, Ireland's own, against JJ Wilson. And Mads Burnell against Saul Rogers is the standout on this card. It is Aiden Lee versus Aaron Pico was supposed to be on this, but it's Aaron Pico got injured, I believe, or fizzled out or something. It says here in Tapology. But especially Pedro Carvalho, good to see Pedro back, isn't it, after losing to Pitbull in his last fight?
Yeah, obviously going in there against Pitbull is one of the toughest tasks in Bellator. But he's still a young guy. He's still developing. Maybe he got the title shot a bit too early. Like it looks that way. But he could take loads of things to work on and learn from in that fight and build his way back up again. Like I think he's definitely got a lot of potential. He's shown before. He's tough-nosed, well-rounded, and always improving. So yeah, obviously it didn't work out for him in the title fight, but. I wouldn't, like a lot of people, maybe it was their first exposure to him, and it didn't he didn't get to show much, but he definitely is a very good prospect and has a history of improving a lot in between fights. So I'm expecting him to hopefully look a lot better here, learn from that last fight, and obviously keep building his way back up.
Yeah. Only one more thing to do, Graeme. Who do you think will win, Jake Paul or Ben Askren?
Oh, see, I don't really know. When is that? Was that this weekend or
next weekend? Yeah.
When is that?
17th.
Oh, really? Yeah. I don't know anything. I don't really know anything about. I need to watch those boxing bouts. I saw that knockout punch of the basketball guy.
Yeah.
But basketball's a no contact sport.
So is wrestling though.
I don't know. No contact. You get slammed on your head and shit.
Okay. Roman Reigns.
We'll have King Mo wrestle you and fucking have a fucking bruised tailbone for fucking 2 months and see how you fucking feel.
Oh, that's experience talking there.
His coach is even worse. Kept tripping me. I was like, oh my god.
No need for it. I don't want to analyze this fight, to be honest. I don't care about it. I think Jake Paul will win.
Is I don't know. These guys that he's been boxing, what kind of level have they been at? Have you watched these boxing bouts that Jake Paul has had?
Yeah, he's only boxed like a basketball player and a YouTuber, so. But he looks good. He looks like he can throw a punch. He looks like Ben Askren doesn't look like he can throw a punch, but he's been in fights. But if you can push him up against the cage and make it dirty
on him, fucking clinch and starts fucking just grab a hold of his neck and start pummeling him, dirty boxing him up.
Few body shots.
Jake Paul taken punches before and recovered. Has Jake Paul taken any punches?
So. No, I don't know.
So that's always Ben Askren's taking a lot of punches. I don't know. Ben Askren boxing with boxing gloves. I don't think that's going to look very good. It kind of depends on I think this is going to depend a lot on my tiny bit of knowledge I have on the situation is if the ref's going to allow Askren to kind of grab a hold of him, dirty box him. If he's going to allow that, then he should beat him easily. But if the ref's going to be super strict, the second they engage in any way that isn't distance punching, he's going to break it up. Then I don't think Ben Askren's going to offer much in terms of distance striking.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think the referee's not going to let him clinch up, and that's going to fuck Ben Askren over, to be honest. And I'll see. I don't know. I think Jake Paul will knock him out in the first couple of rounds. But however, who knows? Well, maybe not knock him out, but like referee stoppage standing. But look, I'm just glad that it's a retired MMA fighter who hasn't been around for a while, who's not really relevant to the MMA picture, and we don't really have to care about it that much. We spent a minute and a half here talking
replacement about it. Did he have that hip replacement?
He did have it. Yeah. That's no
joke
either. Well, fair play to Ben Askren. He's got the money out of it.
Literally had a hip replacement.
Yeah, some idiot. So, yeah, look, fair play to him. All right, that's it. We have this quick Trent Alexander. So if anyone doesn't like soccer, you can tune out right now.
Yeah. Say your piece.
So, look, my piece is Trent Alexander-Arnold's obviously a very good attacking footballer from a defensive point of view, but and was fantastic for Liverpool when they were dominant and were destroying everyone. But when you're not dominant and not destroying everyone, and when he has to defend more than attack, he is going to get found out, because he's okay. You'll probably say he isn't as bad as people make out, but he is. I think this week has showed he's a terrible defender. He's just terrible positioning, doesn't know the right place to be. Is not that brave in defending, can't really tackle, just doesn't have anything defensively. Maybe if you move in position, we talked about that before, but they're not at the moment. And if you're like an England boss,
if you look at
go on.
If you look at it, like, it depends on if you're going to play. If Southgate's going to play a right back, a normal traditional English right back, then that's not Trent. Trent's never been a right back throughout his youth career. He's never been that. He's like basically a winger that does his best to cover defense when he can in the Liverpool system. Yeah, like his basically licenses to create goals and play up the pitch, play positive balls forward, take chances with passes to make shit happen, to cut open defenses with crosses or with nice balls to Salah or into the centre. So if you're Gareth Southgate and you're going to play a back four with a traditional right back, then you're probably better off playing I know Wan-Bissaka's never been in the squad, but I think if you're going to play a traditional old school, like been and gone, like last era old school fucking defender, than Wan-Bissaka or like somebody like that is a better option. But if you're going to play, Kyle Walker. If you're going to play Trent as a right wing back, you want to play Kyle Walker as the right centre back of a three, because then Trent can do what he does at Liverpool and come back with a bit more security to roam forward than he does at Liverpool. And I think he could be, like, in international football, the standard isn't that high. You have much more time on the ball. Trent would have much more time to pick his passes from that side. He's obviously a really good set piece taker as well. I think to not have him in the squad would be terrible. A terrible decision by Gareth Southgate. Just the amount of positions he can play as well. He's been a centre mid for most of his nearly all his career, bar the last few years. Yeah, I know, but he's a well-rounded player. You know what I mean? He can play on the right wing. He's had a few minutes, like a couple of games for Liverpool up right forward. He can make shit happen. Obviously he's had some huge influence on goals, like that Barcelona, quick thinking on the corner. He's an intelligent player. He can make shit happen that other players don't make happen. I think need that in an England team. I think that aren't, like, if England were the best team in the world and they didn't need to take any chances, then you could just play like your standard right back. But when you're not that good of a team and you have to beat better teams, you're going to need somebody like Trent to not pass it sideways to make shit happen. I
would think the opposite. I think Trent would be a great player for them against the bad teams where they're attacking all the time, but against teams where they have to defend, I wouldn't play him. And the issue with that is it's not so much Trent. Trent is what he is, but when he has fucking Harry Maguire and Tyrone Mings as his two centre backs, as we've seen with Liverpool this year, he struggles badly. That's going to be the issue. If they had a great defender,
if you're going to play Trent for England, you're going to have to play three at the back, because Gareth Southgate obviously isn't comfortable with.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do that.
Trent as a normal right back.
I think the thing that looked at.
So you'd play Walker on that side.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think England have too much attacking quality to play a five at the back, and I think with England you have to make look. Kyle Walker is going to start. I think he's their best right back, well rounded. He's a very good attacker, very good defensively. Now he wasn't so much in the past, but like, and so he's the best option. After that, the option I would nearly pick Trent just because. I think we're probably we're agreeing that like he has to be in the squad. Like that, it would be a disastrous. It depends what you want,
choice
right?
Not to put him in the squad.
It depends what you want. If you
not
want...
to start him, just depends on the system and what you're trying to play. And it's like if you don't want to start him, that's completely understandable because he isn't he doesn't just slot into any system. He needs to be in to get the best out of him from that side. It needs to be a certain system. Like you need to let him be free to go forward.
I think you could say the same thing. Like if you want to play England's biggest problem is fitting all their talent in. So they have like up front they have Harry Kane, who's one of the best strikers in the world. They have Raheem Sterling, one of the best wingers in the world. Phil Foden, to me, one of the best young players in the world. They have Grealish is playing really well recently, although he's been injured. They have Rashford, Greenwood, Calvert-Lewin, all this really good talent.
Sterling's
but hold on one second. Just let me make this point. Just let me make this point. If you want to get all of those in and you don't want to play, say, like 2 defensive midfielders or even 3 as they've done sometimes, I think the best thing you can do is play one person holding, whether that be Rice or Henderson, whoever you want to be, and then play a more defensive defense. So I'd play, like, okay, it's a Man United thing, but I think we'd all agree the best defensive right back for England would be Wan-Bissaka, and Luke Shaw is obviously, you have to pick Luke Shaw. He's been playing so well this year as a left back for them, and Wan-Bissaka is going to hold that up. He'll hold that right side. He's absolutely brilliant there, and it'll give Sterling, whoever it might be on that side, more of a chance to go forward because they know there's such a good defender behind him, whereas he can't.
Yeah, well, like you watch the plan when Man United play a lot of the times against the top team. The top teams will say, "Okay, Wan-Bissaka, you have the ball because we know you're not going to do much going forward." They kind of give that space to him, and then the tactic against Trent is basically like we know he's not going to be there half the time because he's going to be up the pitch, so we go for that side. And when Henderson is playing on the right side, Trent doesn't get exposed as much. But when Henderson injured and you have like Thiago or you have Wijnaldum, they're not quite as good at covering for Trent, filling that void when he goes forward as Henderson is. So like it all depends on what system and where. Like does Gareth Southgate want to continue to play Henderson as a defensive midfielder, or you play him on the right like Klopp has most of the time? Bar like I think there was a half season where he played like defensive midfield. I think it's clear to see that Henderson is much better when he's not when he's on the right, when he's not kind of anchored in front of the defense. So I think like you need options. Like Southgate's team isn't good enough that this is plan A, we're going to beat everybody with this. I think Trent offers a lot of options.
I think Trent is only going to be great.
I think Bissaka is another one that nobody's talking about. But like international football, the standard isn't that high. Like he's going to have a lot of space. When Trent is given space, his final delivery is unbelievable. Like even without space, he's getting like 13, 12 assists a season over the last couple of seasons. If you look at standard international football, they try to pretend like it's just kind of like, can he do it? Like, will he be an international? It's nowhere near. It's nowhere near. Like, you know what I mean? It's fucking nowhere near. And when you have a player like flair players can really be the ones to make the difference. You don't have to start this guy. You can bring him on. Like, you know what I mean? I think he has to be in the squad. Like, but from a Liverpool point of view, I don't care. Like, it's less chance of him getting injured, more rest. If he doesn't go. But from an England perspective, like if I was an England fan, I would definitely like. I don't care, but if Roy Keane is a Man United player, like I like when the whole Saipan thing, I wanted him in the team because he's, you know what I mean. I don't care. It's all like if a player is if a player is the best player or a very good player or needs to be in the team to improve the team, then he should be there, like at least in the squad. Like I think I don't know. Like I think it's no surprise to anybody that Trent will be caught up the pitch and have to come back and not be the best right back defensively in the world because that's not his position.
Trent is what he is, but I don't think England are ever going to be what suits Trent, to be honest. And you can, I think if Trent Alexander-Arnold was Irish, right, we could build the whole team around him because we're fucking shit everywhere else. But England have too many good players to build it around the right back like that, and they don't have good enough centre backs. And
but if you look at the recent games that Trent played and the amount of chances he created,
but
you don't think Harry Kane wants Trent playing. You don't think these guys want.
If Trent is playing against fucking Bulgaria or against fucking the Faroe Islands, absolutely, because they're going to have the ball the whole time. Play him. But if you're playing against fucking Brazil or I know it's the Euro, but if you're playing against Germany or Spain or something like that, I would not trust him in a a million years. I play Kyle Walker there, or Wan-Bissaka, or Reece James is good as well, but
but how many games are they going to play against the top teams? Like, they have to,
but Kyle Walker is still very good as well. I would trust Kyle Walker to play. But
is he though?
He's
like
good,
Kyle Walker's final product up the pitch is non-existent. Like, how many assists does he get a season? Like 2, 3, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I would just wouldn't trust Trent Alexander-Arnold in it. If I was picking a team and I had to go out and win a tournament, I would have him as a sub maybe to bring him on, but I would not trust him to start because we've seen in the last week, it's just exactly what Trent is.
About, though,
yeah, right back. He cost him the Champions League this year, basically.
Perfect.
Yeah, but
it's not over yet. Obviously he made a bad mistake. Alisson has made bad mistakes.
What's happened to Alisson this year?
Top players make mistakes.
Alisson's been terrible this year.
Yeah, like, even the best players, you see they go through patches. Like, you know what I mean? We've seen it with loads of players. Like, you name the best player in the world, they've had bad patches. Like, he may turn out to be one of the best players in the world in the future. It doesn't, just because he has a bad patch at some stage when he's younger, doesn't mean, like, Messi's had bad patch. Ronaldo's had, like, games where he's not scored, for like streaks of games where he's not scored. Like, it happens to everybody.
What do you think is the
Trent is a young guy in a position he's still learning. He never played it up until 3 years ago.
He'll never be a great player. He's had his best days now. He's like Coldplay with Yellow. He's had his best days from the very start. Oh, here, come here. Who do you think is
their first album?
Who do you think is that's true. Who do you think is the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this year? And we'll end it on this now.
This year,
couldn't be Alisson. He's had too many mistakes.
No, there hasn't been any real standout goalkeeper. Henderson's been bad. De Gea's been bad. Mendy, he looked like he was going to be good, but he's gone a bit. No. He's gone a bit wobbly. Ederson has been, I suppose, he hasn't got much to do.
I understand Nick
very
Pope.
Lucky, very, very lucky that he wasn't sent off in the Champions League for kicking the guy.
Yeah, that was
they scored.
Oh my god, that was the worst decision I've ever seen.
They scored, he kicked him, and it got for free. Like, that would have been a red card or a goal against, and it ends up being a fucking free out. So
Bellingham looks good as well.
He's always a bit dodgy as well. There's no real outstanding goalkeeper this season in the Premier League so far.
I would go with Nick Pope, even though I don't rate him that highly. I don't think he's great, but I think he's been the most steady goalkeeper in the Premier League this year. I'd probably go for him. I don't know.
The Villa keeper Martinez. Yeah, Martinez has probably been the one who's made the most difference. What a fucking difference he's made. Like,
what were Arsenal thinking getting rid of him? He's a better goalkeeper.
Even against Liverpool there, he made a couple of good saves. Yeah, I think they got offered a lot. I think it was like 20-25 million or something for a sub goalkeeper, and
Dean Henderson. Dean hasn't made many errors this year.
Yeah, he's dodgy enough. To be
honest. He's not. I like him. No, he's better than De Gea.
Well, that doesn't take much.
Yeah, I know. All right, go on. Shall we leave it at that? That was a very civil discussion for us having a soccer discussion.
Kelleher's the Irish Premier League goalkeeper Kelleher has been flawless in his tiny amount of time he's played.
Bring him on. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Champions League goalkeeper.
I wonder there's like 3 people still listening to this. I guarantee you. I'm not gonna do an inspirational quote of the week because there's no one listening. I don't wanna ruin it. But thanks everybody for listening. Go to manscaped.com. Use promo code SEVERE. Sign up at FightPicks.com, and as well, if you're that way inclined, sign up patreon.com/severe MMA podcast and help us out. The price of a pint a month, you'll be keeping the lights on. I need a new computer and everything like that, so hopefully you can help us out with that, and we'd have better production and everything like that. So yeah, thank you, Graeme. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Good luck.